Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. And today we're taking a close look at wire rope inspections, a topic that's absolutely essential for anyone working with cranes.
Yeah, that's right. Whether you're a seasoned operator, a safety pro, or, just starting out on your path to get your operator's license, this information is crucial.
Yeah, it's life or death stuff.
It really is.
So we've got some OSHA guidelines here that lay out a really interesting multi-tiered approach to inspections. And it all starts with something called a shift inspection, which I think is a really great way of, putting it front of mind every day.
Absolutely.
Before you even get started.
Yeah, like a daily checkup for your crane's lifeline.
Exactly.
So before each shift, a competent person has to visually inspect those wire ropes, really give them a good look.
Okay, wait a second, back up. Competent person. What does that even mean?
Right. It's not just anybody grabbing a flashlight. This is somebody who has the knowledge, the experience to understand those safety standards, spot those early signs of trouble, and know what to do when they find them.
So it's more than just like, oh, that rope looks kind of frayed today.
Oh, yeah, way more.
Okay.
They're looking for very specific deficiencies, and OSHA actually breaks those down into 3 categories.
Okay, so let's talk about those categories.
Yeah.
Category. What kind of stuff are we talking about?
So category, you're looking at major structural problems, big red flags. So we're talking things like kink and crushing bird caging, which is where the wires are all splayed out, core protrusion, you've got corrosion damage from electrical arcs, and problems with the end connections.
Okay, wow, that's a lot to be looking out for. And so if you find any of that stuff, it's like game over for that rope.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's just too risky.
Okay.
So either the whole rope needs to be replaced, or if it's, if the damage is limited to a certain area, you can cut off the damaged section. But splicing, which is joining 2 pieces together, is a no-no.
Ah, okay, so no DIY rope surgery.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so then category 2, is that like less intense?
Yeah. So category 2, you're kind of shifting focus to those tiny details that could signal bigger problems down the line. So it's all about looking for broken wires. But how many broken wires actually raise a red flag that depends on the type of rope you're inspecting and where those breaks are located.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Yeah, sure. So imagine you're inspecting a running rope. That's the one that actually lifts the load. If you see 6 broken wires scattered over one rope lay, which is the length along the rope where one strand makes a full revolution around the core, that's a problem. It could be a sign of fatigue or even internal damage.
So that's where the real expertise comes in, right?
Yeah.
Like knowing exactly what to look for and what those signs mean.
Absolutely. And for category 2 deficiencies, it's crucial to check the wire rope manufacturer's recommendations because they'll tell you exactly when a rope needs to be retired based on the number of broken wires.
So it's not always just replace it.
Right.
But if in doubt, better safe than sorry.
Always. Because no crane operator wants to have a dropped load on their conscience.
Right.
Now, category 3, this is where things get really hairy.
Okay, bracing myself.
Yeah.
What are we talking about here?
These are the showstoppers, right? Things that make you say, nope, this rope is done.
Okay.
We're talking core protrusion or distortion, especially in rotation-resistant ropes, meaning the heart of that rope is starting to fail, and then prior contact with a power line.
Oh my gosh, that is a terrifying thought.
It is.
Yeah.
And any rope that's touched a power line, that's an immediate out of service. And of course, a broken strand that falls into category 3 as well.
Okay, so with category 3, you're not even thinking about repairs.
Right. The exception might be localized damage, and that does not include power line contact.
Of course.
You might be able to salvage part of the rope, but again, no splicing allowed. And you always have to have enough rope left for at least 2 reps on the drum when the load is at its lowest point.
No cutting corners, literally.
No.
This is really fascinating stuff. I mean, it really drives home how important those shift inspections are.
Absolutely. They are vital.
Yeah.
And remember, if a wire rope gets pulled from service tag that equipment out, you don't want anyone using something that's been deemed unsafe.
Common sense, right?
Absolutely.
So we've tackled these shift inspections. What's next in this multi-tiered approach to making sure that those ropes are as strong as they can be?
Well, on top of that daily vigilance, there's also a monthly inspection that needs to happen.
So building on that initial shift inspection, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So what's different with the monthly one?
So it follows the same process, but it adds a layer of review. It includes looking back at any issues that were flagged during the annual inspection, which we'll get to in a minute.
So it's like a double check to make sure nothing's being missed.
Exactly. And just like with the shift inspection, that equipment is off limits until that monthly inspection gives the green light.
I'm guessing paperwork's a big deal here too, right?
Absolutely. Detailed records for every inspection. They're crucial.
Yeah.
That's how you track the condition of those wire ropes over time, spot any recurring problems, and prove you're following those safety procedures to the letter.
So it's not just about doing the checks, it's about having a paper trail to back it up.
Precisely. Speaking of thorough checks, let's move on to the big one, the annual inspection.
All right, let's dive into that. So what makes the annual inspection stand out from the shift and monthly checks?
So this is where the magnifying glass really comes out.
Okay.
It's conducted by a qualified person, someone with even more expertise than the competent person from the other inspections.
Yep.
This qualified person has a deep understanding of wire rope construction inspection techniques and all the relevant regulations. They're examining the entire length of the rope, including those hard-to-reach areas that don't get checked as often.
Wow, so they're leaving no stone unturned.
Exactly. They're looking for all the same deficiencies we talked about before, but they're paying extra attention to critical areas like reverse bends, where the rope changes direction, like when it wraps around a sheave. These are the spots where wear and tear tend to show up first.
Interesting. So they're really focusing on those high stress points.
Got it.
Got it. And how often does this annual inspection need to happen?
It should be done at least every 12 months. There are some exceptions, though. For instance, if the setup makes it impossible to do a full inspection, maybe you're working in a really tight space, then it can be delayed, but safety always comes first.
Right, so they build in some flexibility for those tricky situations.
Exactly. But that flexibility doesn't mean cutting corners. Safety is never compromised.
Okay. So during this annual inspection, if they find a problem, what happens next?
It's similar to the shift inspection. They have to decide, is this a stop-everything situation or something that can be watched closely?
So they're judging the severity of the issue.
Exactly. If it's a major hazard, that rope is out of commission. It either gets replaced or they can cut off the damaged part, but no splicing, remember?
Right, right.
But if it's something that needs monitoring, it gets added to the checklist for those monthly inspections.
Got it. So it becomes like a recurring item on the radar. Make sense? And I'm assuming all of this is meticulously documented.
You bet. Thorough documentation is key for every inspection, especially the annual one. It's like a health record for the wire rope, providing a history of its condition. It helps track wear and tear, spot potential issues, and demonstrate compliance with those all-important safety regulations.
So we've got these 3 levels of inspection, shift monthly and annual, each with its own level of scrutiny and all meticulously documented. It seems like a pretty solid system to keep those wire ropes in tip-top shape.
It is, and it's all there for a reason. These regulations and guidelines have been developed based on years of experience and, unfortunately, accidents. By sticking to them, we can drastically reduce the chances of a wire rope failing and keep everyone safe.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, it's all about preventing those catastrophic events that can happen when a wire rope fails.
You got it. And let's be real for a moment. We're talking about safety and risk professionals, crane operators, and aspiring operators right here. This information is gold for you all.
Yeah, you're the ones on the front lines operating these machines and keeping everyone on the job site safe.
Knowing these procedures inside and out could be the difference between a smooth operation and a major incident.
So let's recap. We've covered the what of wire rope inspections, the 3 levels from OSHA Shift Monthly, and the comprehensive annual inspection. Each one adds another layer of safety, making sure nothing slips through the cracks.
We also dug into those 3 categories of wire rope deficiencies, from the glaring Category I issues that need immediate action to the more subtle Category 2 problems that require careful monitoring based on the manufacturer's guidelines. And of course, we can't forget those serious Category 3 issues that usually mean it's time for a new rope.
Yeah, we talked about documentation, tagging out equipment, and making sure those lubricants don't hide any potential problems. And we emphasize the importance of having those qualified individuals in charge of the inspections, people who know those ropes inside and out.
It's a lot to take in, but it's essential knowledge for anyone involved with crane operations.
Okay, so we've covered the what. Now let's talk about the why. Why are these inspections so crucial?
Well, as we've mentioned throughout this deep dive, wire ropes face immense stress. They're constantly lifting and lowering heavy loads, often in tough conditions. Over time, this leads to wear and tear fatigue and potential damage. If we don't catch these issues early, they can weaken the rope, making it prone to failure.
And a wire rope failure during a lift, that's a nightmare scenario, right?
Absolutely. We're talking about potential loads dropping from a height which could lead to serious injuries or even fatalities. It could damage equipment, disrupt operations, and lead to major costs and delays, not to mention the legal and reputational fallout from a serious accident.
So these inspections aren't just about checking boxes or following rules. They're about preventing accidents and saving lives.
Exactly. They're about creating a safety-first culture on every job site and making sure everyone goes home safe at the end of the day.
Now, I think it's important to acknowledge that even with these strict inspections, accidents can still happen. There's always an element of risk in crane operations.
That's true, but these inspections significantly minimize that risk. They're like preventative medicine, catching potential problems before they become major issues.
Like going to the doctor for a checkup even when you feel fine.
Precisely. You go for a checkup to make sure everything is okay and to catch any potential health problems early on. It's the same idea with wire rope inspections. We're being proactive, looking for signs of wear and tear damage or fatigue, so we can take action and prevent a breakdown, or in this case, a catastrophic accident.
And that proactive mindset is what sets apart a truly safety-conscious organization.
Absolutely. It's about going above and beyond, being diligent, and taking those extra steps to protect everyone.
Now we focus on the OSHA regulations, but those are just the minimum requirements.
That's a great point. Don't forget to consult the manufacturer's recommendations for the specific wire rope you're using. They'll have detailed guidelines on inspections, maintenance, and when to retire a rope.
So the OSHA guidelines are the foundation, but you need to go deeper. Tailor your practices to the specific rope and equipment you're using.
Exactly, and this is where experience, judgment, and a deep understanding of wire rope come into play. You need to recognize those subtle signs of wear and tear, assess the damage, and make informed decisions about whether a rope is safe to use or needs replacing.
It's not just following a checklist. It's about understanding the nuances of wire rope and making sound judgments based on your observations and knowledge.
Precisely. It's about having a keen eye for detail, that ability to spot those potential problems before they become major safety hazards. And it's about speaking up if you see something that doesn't look right.
Because at the end of the day, everyone on that job site shares the responsibility for safety. It's not just the crane operator's job. It's a team effort.
Absolutely. Everyone needs to be vigilant, aware of their surroundings, and empowered to raise concerns if they see something that looks unsafe.
So if you're a safety professional, make sure you're conducting thorough inspections and providing clear guidance to operators. If you're a crane operator, take ownership of your machine. Inspect those wire ropes diligently and don't hesitate to ask questions or flag any potential problems. And if you're hoping to become a crane operator, make learning about wire rope inspection a top priority.
Great advice. This knowledge is essential for anyone working with cranes.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. Even with all the regulations, guidelines, and best practices we've talked about, every situation is unique. You can't just rely on like a one-size-fits-all approach, right?
Exactly. It requires, careful observation, critical thinking, and a healthy dose of caution. No two situations are exactly alike.
So trust your gut. Don't be afraid to err on the side of safety, and always double-check those manufacturer recommendations.
Absolutely. When it comes to wire rope, safety knowledge is power. The more you understand about wire rope, its properties, and how to inspect it properly, the better equipped you'll be to prevent accidents and, create a safer work environment.
And speaking of knowledge, this deep dive has really opened my eyes to the connection between knowing the rules and understanding why they exist.
What's fascinating is that it's not just about, memorizing the regulations. It's about grasping the real world consequences of, those broken wires or that kink in the rope. And that's what really transforms a routine inspection into a life-saving act.
Yeah, like you're like a detective searching for those clues that could, prevent a major disaster.
Exactly. And if we zoom out for a minute and think about, all the industries that depend on cranes, construction, manufacturing, shipping energy, the impact of a crane-related accident can be massive.
Yeah, you're right. It's not just about the immediate job site. It can, affect entire projects, deadlines, even global supply chains.
This brings up an important question for our listeners. How can you contribute to a culture of wire rope safety in your own workplace?
That's a great challenge to leave them with. It could be anything from, starting a conversation about best practices to speaking up when you spot a potential issue.
And remember, technology is always advancing. There might be new tools and techniques for wire rope inspection that we haven't even discussed today.
So stay curious, keep learning, and never stop prioritizing safety.
Well said.
Yeah.
And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our wire rope inspection deep dive.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and feel empowered to champion safety on your job sites. Until next time.
Yeah, it can't just be like a checklist, right? You need to really understand what you're looking at.
You got it.
Yeah.
It's about having that keen eye for detail, being able to spot those potential problems before they, become major safety hazards. And it's also about speaking up. If you see something that doesn't look right, say something.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's everyone's responsibility on that job site, right?
Absolutely.
It's not just the crane operator.
It's a team effort.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to be vigilant, aware of their surroundings and feel empowered to, raise concerns if they see something that looks unsafe. Right. So if you're a safety professional, make sure you're conducting those thorough inspections and providing clear guidance to your operators. If you're a crane operator, take ownership of your machine. Inspect those ropes diligently. And don't be afraid to ask questions or flag any potential problems. And if you're hoping to become a crane operator, make learning about this stuff a top priority.
Great advice. This knowledge is essential for anyone working with cranes.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Yeah.
Even with all these regulations, guidelines, and best practices we've talked about, every situation is unique.
That's so true. You can't just rely on a one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to wire rope safety.
Right.
It requires careful observation, critical thinking, and, a healthy dose of caution. No two situations are exactly alike.
So trust your gut. Don't be afraid to err on the side of safety. And always double-check those manufacturer recommendations.
Absolutely. When it comes to wire rope, safety knowledge is power. The more you understand about wire rope, its properties, and how to inspect it properly, the better equipped you'll be to prevent accidents and, create a safer work environment for everybody.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our wire rope inspection deep dive.
We have.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. We hope you've learned some valuable insights today and feel empowered to champion safety on your job sites. Until next time.